Some bikes look like a deal until they ruin your wallet. In 2025, dealerships are drowning in machines nobody wants, even with thousands knocked off the price. Today, we're counting down 20 motorcycles that flopped so hard they're now financial landmines. And chances are, one of them's on your wish list. At number 1, BMW R18, the chrome brick that won't leave. On paper, it was BMW's bold entrance into the cruiser world. Big chrome, big boxer, big nostalgia. But in reality, the R18 has turned into one of the slowest moving lumps of luxury metal on dealership floors. At nearly 900 pounds, the R18 is heavier than your confidence during your first U-turn. And the worst part? It's not even functional weight. Riders say it's a pain in stop-and-go traffic, uncomfortable on long rides, and handles like a fridge on wheels. Add in the $17,000 plus price tag, and you've got a cruiser nobody wants to wrestle with or pay for. BMW hoped the heritage vibe would win over Harley fans. But Harley fans didn't flinch, and younger riders said, nah, we're good. Tech-wise, it's stuck in neutral. A tiny LCD wedged between analog gauges and a basic electronics suite make it feel more like a throwback in the wrong way. Owners are now watching resale values fall like a dropped helmet. Some can't even get $10K for bikes with under 3,000 miles. Here's the deal. If you see an R18 with a blowout price tag on it, remember, it's not a deal. It's a dealership's escape plan. If you thought that was overpriced junk, this next one takes it to a whole new level. At number 2, Ducati Monster 937, Italian drama, zero loyalty. This was supposed to be Ducati's stripped-down, rider-friendly naked sport bike. It had the name, the looks, the specs. But now, dealers can't give them away fast enough. When the Monster 937 launched, people were hyped, until they saw the $12,000 plus price and realized the competition was offering more for less. The Yamaha MT-09 costs less, has more torque, and doesn't demand a $900 valve check every 7,500 miles. That's not a joke. Ducati maintenance is like dating someone high maintenance. You'll spend half your time waiting, the other half paying. And it's not just the price. Owners reported weird electronic gremlins, finicky quick shifters, and twitchy fueling at low speeds. Forums are full of "my monster's in the shop again" threads. Not exactly the Ducati lifestyle people signed up for. Resale? Brutal. Riders who bought in 2022 are now offloading them at $9,000 or less, often with barely any mileage. That's a massive hit, and one that buyers are noticing. Here's the tip. If you want Italian flair without the therapy bills, look elsewhere. The Monster name still has weight, but the market's made it clear. This model didn't deliver. Subscribe now, or risk buying a bike even the dealer secretly wants to return. Next up, a cruiser that looks badass but rides like a tax burden. At number 3, Suzuki Boulevard M109R. Muscle cruiser or museum exhibit? There was a time when the M109R turned heads. Big engine, big tire, big attitude. It was Suzuki's mic drop in the muscle cruiser world. But here in 2025, it's more big regret than big performance. The 1,783cc V-twin is still a brute on paper, but the rest of the bike hasn't kept up. No ride modes, no traction control, no digital dash, not even a fuel gauge that makes sense. It's stuck in 2006, and the motorcycle world has moved on, hard. Riders say the M109R feels like it was designed to impress in a showroom and punish on the street. It's heavy, clunky in corners, and guzzles gas like it's angry about the future. Getting 30 mpg on a good day? Yikes! Dealers can't get rid of them. Some are offering 3,000 plus discounts just to clear floor space. Used listings hover under $8K and still sit unsold for months. Worse, it's expensive to insure and doesn't hold resale value. Riders who bought new are now eating thousands just to make it someone else's problem. The M109R might look tough, but under the chrome, it's an outdated, overpriced fuel hog that's been left behind by more modern muscle machines. Now let's shift gears to a bike that was supposed to blend old school cool with modern class, but forgot to actually evolve along the way. At number 4, Honda Shadow Phantom. ghosted by modern riders. The name Phantom couldn't be more fitting, because this bike has practically vanished from relevance. Honda's Shadow Phantom was once the go-to for riders chasing that bobber style on a budget. It had a slick, blacked-out look, bulletproof 745cc V-twin, and a low seat perfect for newer riders. But here's the catch. Nothing's really changed since 2010, and by 2025, that's a problem. No digital dash, no ride modes, not even standard ABS on earlier models. It's the equivalent of buying a flip phone in the iPhone era. Cheap, sure, but way behind. Add in a weak 44 horsepower output and a 5-speed transmission, and you've got a bike that's more show than go. And it's not just about specs. Riders report the suspension feels harsh, the ergonomics are stiff for long rides, and the resale value basically evaporated. You'll see low mileage Shadows listed for $3,500, and they're still gathering digital dust on marketplaces. Even loyal Honda riders are jumping ship to more tech-savvy options like the Rebel 500, which offers better performance, updated features, and a more engaging ride. If you want a cruiser that looks cool and sips gas, there are better options out there. The Shadow Phantom? It's a shadow of what new riders are really looking for today. Coming up, a Harley that was supposed to redefine the brand, but ended up redefining buyer's remorse. At number 5, HarleyDavidson Sportster S. Future tech, retro flop. Harley hyped it up as their bold reinvention. Liquid-cooled Revolution Max engine. Modern tech, aimed squarely at younger riders. But the Sportster S didn't land like a revolution. It face-planted like a midlife crisis on 2 wheels. Yes, it packs power, 121 horsepower, adjustable ride modes, a digital display, all the goodies. But it also comes with a nearly $16K price tag, a stiff ride, and a weird riding position that makes your knees feel like they're auditioning for Cirque du Soleil. Early adopters were excited, then the reality set in. It's not comfy for long rides, not nimble enough for city riding, and not classic enough to satisfy Harley traditionalists. It's stuck in this awkward identity crisis, and the market noticed. Resale is down bad. You'll find barely used models listed for under $12K, with owners begging for buyers. Forums are filled with regret posts from people who expected a reborn legend and got a muscle scooter with a nameplate. Even dealers are slashing prices up to $3,000 off to clear them out. The Sportster S tried to do too much, too fast, and ended up pleasing almost no one. How many of these motorcycles have you owned or nearly bought? Let us know in the comments. We won't judge. Probably. At number 6, Indian Scout 60. Entry-level icon or depreciation disaster? When Indian launched the Scout 60, it looked like the perfect gateway drug into their lineup. Same styling as the full-fat Scout, slightly smaller engine, and a lower price. On the surface, it felt like a win. But under the surface, this bike started showing cracks fast. The Scout 60 lacks key features modern buyers want. No ride modes, no traction control, basic ABS, if equipped at all, and a gauge cluster that hasn't changed since Obama was in office. It's built for beginners, but priced just high enough to make you consider literally anything else. What hurt the most? Resale. The Scout 60 tanks hard. Riders who paid around $11K new are struggling to get $5K on resale, even with tasteful mods and low miles. That's not just depreciation. That's daylight robbery with paperwork. Also, parts aren't cheap. You're locked into Indian dealerships for basic maintenance, and most local mechanics won't touch it without charging you Harley prices. The riding experience? It's fine, but fine isn't good enough anymore, especially when the same money gets you a Rebel 1100 or even an MT-07 with way more value baked in. If you're thinking about grabbing a Scout 60 on clearance, look twice. That deal might be the start of a slow, expensive relationship. At number 7, Kawasaki Vulcan S, the beginner cruiser that time forgot. The Vulcan S had all the right ingredients on launch. Mid-sized 649cc parallel twin engine, adjustable ergonomics, low seat height. It was built to welcome new riders into cruiser life without scaring them or breaking the bank. But here's the reality. It hasn't evolved since 2015. And it shows. In 2025, the Vulcan S is basically a time capsule. Same analog gauge, same basic suspension, same awkward styling that makes it look like a cruiser pretending to be a naked bike. No TFT screen, no cornering ABS, no ride modes, just you and a dash from the early 2000s. Riders say the engine is peppy but lacks soul, and the handling is meh at best. It's great for your first 5,000 miles. And then you want something better. Resale, rough. Used Vulcans flood the market under $4,000, and many sit for months. Dealers are now offering 1,000 plus markdowns just to clear inventory. And even that hasn't sparked much interest. The sad part? It's not a bad bike. It's just boring now. And boring doesn't sell in a market where even beginner bikes come with cruise control and full-color displays. At number 8, Triumph Bonneville Bobber. Too cool to be practical. The Bobber was Triumph's attempt to bottle vintage cool and sell it as a daily rider. And for a while, it worked. It looked killer. Solo seat, hardtail style rear, minimalist cockpit. But now, it's a style over substance cautionary tale. At 250 plus pounds heavier than it looks, and with a riding position that turns long trips into yoga class, the Bobber just isn't built for versatility. You get zero storage, limited range, and no ability to bring a passenger unless you buy aftermarket mods. Tech-wise, it's underwhelming for its price. A basic analog display and a stripped-down electronics suite make it feel more retro inconvenience than retro charm. There are no ride modes, no cornering ABS, no cruise control, just vibes and a hope your back doesn't give out. Early owners praised its design, but many have since jumped ship. The market is flooded with used bobbers listed at $8K, $9K, and they're barely getting any bites. You're basically paying for a piece of garage art. A really expensive, hard-to-flip piece of garage art. And when even Triumph loyalists start saying, "It looks cool, but I wouldn't ride it every day," you know resale is in trouble. At number 9, KTM 1290, Super Duke GT. Sport touring or stress touring? This thing should have been unstoppable. A 175 horsepower V-twin engine, semi-active suspension, tech loaded to the max. On paper, the KTM 1290 Super Duke GT looked like the dream machine for anyone who wanted to crush miles with supermoto energy. But in practice, it's been more headache than highlight reel. The GT's biggest issue? Reliability. Riders across forums report electrical glitches, overheating, wonky fuel sensors, and phantom check engine lights. It's fast, no doubt, but fast doesn't matter when your dash starts lighting up like a Christmas tree mid-corner. It also launched with a sticker price hovering around $20K. And while it was arguably worth that on spec, it landed in a market where you could get a Yamaha Tracer 9 GT or Ninja 1000 SX with almost equal tech for thousands less, and none of the mechanical drama. Maintenance costs? Brutal. European parts pricing plus specialized servicing equals quick wallet pain. Valve checks, coolant flushes, and random part replacements add up faster than your insurance premium. Resale is even worse. Bikes that went for $19,000 new are now posted for $9,000 and still not moving. Riders are getting hit with 50% value loss within 2 years. That's not depreciation, that's market rejection. KTM tried to build a do-it-all bike. What they created was a high-performance diva that demands cash, patience, and a backup ride. At number 10, BMW G310 GS. Adventure styling, budget build. On first glance, the G310 GS seems like a no-brainer. Small displacement ADV styling, low seat height, lightweight, and backed by the BMW badge. But once owners started riding it, that shiny baby GS appeal wore off fast. The bike's biggest issue is build quality. It's assembled in India by TVS for BMW, and while that isn't inherently a bad thing, riders have reported inconsistent fit and finish, fragile plastics, loose bolts, and electrical hiccups straight out of the crate. Not a great look when your badge screams premium. Performance-wise, the 313cc single-cylinder engine feels underpowered even for its weight class. It's buzzy at highway speeds, struggles to overtake with confidence, and doesn't offer much in the way of comfort on long rides. Suspension travel and ground clearance suggest off-road potential, but most riders say it's too underbuilt for real trails and too underpowered for real highway touring. So, who exactly is this bike for? To make things worse, the G310GS launched with a price tag dangerously close to more capable bikes like the Kawasaki Veloce X300 or even a used CRF 300L Rally. Riders expecting baby GS performance ended up with baby frustrations. And resale? Forget it. Used listings for clean G310GS units barely crack $4,000, and many sit unsold. It may wear BMW's badge, but it doesn't carry the experience or the value that brand is known for. At number 11, Yamaha Bolt RSpec. Cool name, cold sales. Yamaha tried to play in the bobber space with the Bolt RSpec, an air-cooled 942cc V-twin that looked lean, mean, and ready for urban rebellion. But today, this bike's resale value is circling the drain, and dealers are dropping prices like it's radioactive. What happened? Simple. Nothing changed. The Bolt hasn't had a meaningful update since it launched in 2013. No TFT display, no rider modes, no traction control. It's still rocking a single front disc brake and basic rear shocks that bottom out faster than your interest on a bad first date. At launch, people praised its simplicity and cruiser attitude, but in 2025, that simplicity feels more like laziness. Riders looking for tech, comfort, or even decent suspension have abandoned the Bolt in droves. Meanwhile, beginner-friendly cruisers like the Honda Rebel 500 and even newer Chinese entries are offering more features for less money. The Bolt's selling point? Looks cool and is kind of affordable. Not exactly a winning pitch anymore. Used listings now float around $4,500, $5,000, and they're not moving fast. Owners hoping to recover anything close to what they paid are finding out the hard way. Cool styling can't carry a bike forever. Now let's go from bare-bones bobbers to tech-laden machines that tried to do it all and ended up doing too much, too weirdly. At number 12, Honda NM4 Voltus, the anime bike nobody asked for. If a stealth bomber and a maxi scooter had a baby in a Honda design lab, the NM4 Voltus would be it. And while the bold styling definitely turned heads, the market basically responded with, why though? This bike was supposed to appeal to younger, futuristic-minded riders. It had an ultra-low seat height, a long stretched-out front end, and an automatic DCT transmission that let you ride twist-and-go style. But in execution, it landed in a weird no-man's land, too bulky for city commuting, too awkward for touring, and too slow for sport riding. The biggest issue? Nobody knew who it was for. Hardcore riders found it too soft. New riders found it too strange. And the $11,000+ price tag didn't help. That kind of money can buy a lot of actual motorcycles. The NM4's weight and wheelbase made it clumsy at low speeds, and despite all the futuristic flair, it lacked real-world practicality, minimal storage, limited pillion space, and trying to lane split on this thing felt like piloting a spaceship through a grocery aisle. Resale values are abysmal. You'll find NM4s listed for under $6,000 with barely any miles, often posted by owners who realized too late they bought a conversation piece, not a rider-friendly machine. Even Honda fans will tell you, the Voltus was more style experiment than functional bike. And in 2025, it's mostly just a weird memory with a title. At number 13, HarleyDavidson Street 500, entry-level, exit quickly. This was Harley's shot at grabbing new riders. A lightweight, liquid-cooled 500cc cruiser with the bar and shield logo? On paper, it made sense. But in reality, the Street 500 didn't bring new riders in. It just left them disappointed. Build quality was the first red flag. Owners complained about loose controls, rattling plastics, and a finish that looked more budget import than American legend. The ride? Uninspiring. The bike felt sluggish off the line, awkward in turns, and the brakes were described as decorative. But the biggest issue? It just didn't feel like a Harley. The sound, the soul, the vibe, None of it matched what new riders hoped for when they walked into a dealership. It was Harley's attempt to chase the beginner market without offering what made them iconic in the first place. And it showed in the numbers. The Street 500 didn't sell well, didn't hold value, and got axed by Harley after a few short years. Now, used ones are listed for under $4,000 and still collect dust. If you're a new rider looking for your first cruiser, there are better, more engaging options out there. This one's just a forgettable footnote in Harley's recent history. Let's now shift from undercooked entry-level to a high-end name that fell victim to confusion and market mismatch. At number 14, MV Augusta Turismo Veloce, beautiful, overbuilt, and forgotten. MV Augusta's Turismo Veloce looked like it had it all. Gorgeous Italian design, sport touring performance, and high-end features like electronically adjustable suspension and ride-by-wire throttle. It was supposed to go head-to-head with bikes like the Multistrada or Tracer 9 GT. But here's the catch. The price was sky-high, the dealer network was paper-thin, and parts availability was a nightmare. Owning one felt less like riding and more like joining an exclusive club of people constantly hunting for spark plugs and software updates. Performance-wise, it was quick and nimble, but twitchy throttle response and confusing menu systems turned off casual riders. It also lacked the long-distance comfort of true sport tourers, despite being marketed as one. So it wasn't the best at sport or touring. Then came the depreciation. MV Augustas are notorious for dropping in value fast. You'll see used Turismo Veloces listed for half their original price, and still ignored. Owners often mention months of waiting for replacement parts and spotty service, even in large cities. It's a heartbreaker. Beautiful to look at, frustrating to own. If you want Italian flash with less drama, there are better choices. If you want reliability, look literally anywhere else. And finally, this flagship adventure bike that proved sometimes throwing tech at a problem just makes the fall more expensive. At number 15, Honda CB1000R Neo Sports Cafe. Confused styling, confused market. Honda thought they were starting a design trend. The CB1000R Neo Sports Cafe was supposed to blend modern naked bike aggression with cafe racer vibes. What they ended up with was a bike that looked like it couldn't decide what decade it was from. It's not that the CB1000R rides poorly, it doesn't. The engine is solid, detuned Fireblade DNA, the chassis is balanced, and the brakes are decent. But the problem lies in the identity crisis. It's not sporty enough for hardcore naked bike fans, not classic enough for retro lovers, and not practical enough for daily riders. That left it with a weird niche appeal. Just enough to confuse everyone, but not enough to impress anyone. Add to that a hefty price tag north of $12,000 and zero standout features for the money. No cruise control, no cutting-edge electronics, and it quickly lost momentum in a highly competitive class. The Yamaha MT-10, Suzuki GSX S1000, and even the KTM 890 Duke simply offered more excitement per dollar. Resale is harsh. Owners who bought in, hoping for something different, are now offloading their CB1000Rs for around $7,000, $8,000, and they're staying on the market longer than they should. The CB1000R isn't a bad bike, it just missed the mark. A strange mix of styling and specs with no clear audience. A marketing experiment that became a resale liability. Let's head to a heavyweight that brought cruiser energy and then completely forgot to bring value. At number 16, Yamaha VMAX, a legend that stayed too long. When the VMAX first dropped decades ago, it blew minds. 1,679 cc of muscle, insane straight-line power, and a presence that made other cruisers look like scooters. But in 2025, the VMAX feels like a leftover from a VHS-era action movie. Here's the deal. The VMAX was never really updated in any meaningful way since its big 2009 overhaul. And by update, we're talking engine tweaks, not any of the rider aids, tech, or comfort improvements riders now expect. No ride modes, no traction control, no cornering ABS, just a massive engine, a massive frame, and a fuel range that rivals a lawnmower. The performance was legendary, no doubt, But outside of drag racing and bragging rights, the VMAX had little to offer. Too heavy for carving twisties, too thirsty for daily riding, too expensive to justify as a second or third bike. Owners loved the power, but quickly tired of the bulk and the brutal gas mileage. Add to that rising insurance costs, limited parts availability, and the bike's awkward positioning in Yamaha's modern lineup, and it became clear the VMAX's time was up. Resale values have plummeted. You'll see clean, low-mileage examples under $9,000, down from the $17K plus they once commanded. And many sit unsold, with owners admitting they loved it more for the idea than the actual ride. The VMAX was a beast, but in today's world of lean, tech-savvy machines, it's a dinosaur, and the market knows it. At number 17, Suzuki GSX 250R, the beginner bike that forgot to learn. Suzuki tried to enter the lightweight sport bike game with the GSX 250R, hoping to snag new riders who wanted a sporty look without the intimidation factor. Sounds smart, right? Well, the execution fell flat, and the bike never really recovered. The GSX 250R looks the part with full fairings and sharp lines, but under the hood? A sleepy 248cc parallel twin making just 24 horsepower. That's significantly less than rivals like the Yamaha R3 or even the Honda CBR 500R. And the weight? A chunky 392 pounds. So not only is it slow, it's also heavy for its class. Riders expected something that felt nimble and fun. What they got was sluggish acceleration, soft suspension, and a 6-speed gearbox that makes highway riding feel like a stretch. New riders often outgrow it in a matter of months. Worse, Suzuki hasn't meaningfully updated the GSX 250R since launch. No LED lighting, no digital dash, no ABS standard on older models. It's behind the curve in every possible way. You can find used models for $2,500, $3,000 now, and that tells you all you need to know about resale value. It's a bike that barely moved when new, and barely moves off the used lot today. For a few hundred more, buyers can grab a lightly used R3, Ninja 400, or something that doesn't feel like a plastic promise. The GSX 250R didn't fail because it was bad. It failed because it was boring. At number 18, CanAm Spider F3. 3 wheels, too many problems. Let's get one thing out of the way. The CanAm Spider F3 isn't technically a motorcycle, but it is marketed to riders, and it is crashing in value, so it earns a spot on this list. The Spider F3 aimed to merge motorcycle thrills with car-like stability, using a reverse trike setup that looks futuristic and intimidating. But riding one is weird. You don't lean, you steer. You don't counterbalance, you hang on. It's a completely different skill set that feels alien to most two-wheel riders. Then there's the size. It's massive. Parking, lane filtering, tight turns. It's all more complicated than on an actual motorcycle. The F3 is also surprisingly heavy, over 900 pounds, meaning acceleration and braking feels sluggish despite its decent engine. And don't get us started on cost. New models run close to $20,000. Add in premium maintenance, high insurance rates, and the limited dealer network, and you've got a machine that bleeds cash faster than it burns fuel. The resale market? It's brutal. Used F3s are now listed as low as $9,000, $10,000 with minimal mileage. Owners who thought they were getting a bike-like thrill are now struggling to sell to anyone. It's a niche product that never found its niche. Most traditional bikers don't want it, and non-riders find it intimidating. If you want safety with style, a modern touring motorcycle with rider aids makes more sense. The Spider tried to reinvent the wheel and ended up spinning its own into the ground. At number 19, Zero S, the electric bike that fell behind its time. You'd think an electric motorcycle would be future-proof, but the Zero S, it's already looking outdated, and riders are noticing. When it first launched, the Zero S was ahead of the curve. Sleek electric styling, whisper quiet ride, and no gas stops. But in 2025, it's been lapped by newer EV competitors and even left behind by Zero's own newer models. It's got limited range, under 90 miles on real-world mixed riding, and that drops even more if you're hitting highway speeds or using performance mode. Charging time is another killer. Without optional fast-charging hardware, which costs extra, you're waiting hours to top off. That's not practical for riders who need flexibility. Plus, the power output is modest compared to rivals, making the ride feel more scooter than sport bike. Then, there's the price. Even used models are still hovering between $8,000, $10,000. And buyers are hesitant. Why pay that when you can get more range, power, and features from newer EV bikes? Or a great gas-powered sport naked for half the cost? Maintenance might be low, but battery replacement? That's a wallet punch waiting to happen once you pass the warranty window. Zero made a statement with the S, but they didn't keep updating it, and now it's stuck. Not quite entry-level, not quite premium, and not worth what it once was. At number 20, Bule 1190RX. Reborn too late, forgotten too fast. This one stings a little, because on paper, the Bule 1190RX had everything. 185 horsepower, a featherweight chassis, premium suspension, and the kind of American performance pride you don't see every day. It was supposed to resurrect a legendary name and punch Ducati and Aprilia in the face. But the reality, total commercial flop. Bule's resurrection under Eric Bule Racing, EBR, started strong but quickly hit walls, literally and financially. The company folded again, and support became a nightmare. Buyers who picked up the 1190RX were soon left with bikes no dealer wanted to service, no parts readily available, and no brand backing. Riding-wise, it's intense, but maybe too much so. The 1190RX is twitchy, tall, and unforgiving to riders not ready for it. And the design? Let's just say it was polarizing. The sharp plastics and unusual proportions didn't help it win over sport bike loyalists. Even hardcore enthusiasts who wanted to support an American superbike brand ended up frustrated. Today, used listings pop up at $6,000, $7,000 for bikes that cost double that just a few years ago. The resale market is rough. Support is vanishing, and buyer confidence is non-existent. You're buying into a legacy, one that came back swinging but collapsed just as fast. Sometimes a bike can be good on paper and still go nowhere. The 1190RX is living proof. Hit like if you spotted a bike you were lucky to avoid, and subscribe so you don't get stuck with one of these in your garage next. Ride smart, not sorry.